Welcome to the Baboom Baboom podcast, your go-to source for expert tips on car stereo installation, vehicle wiring, and all things wiring related. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, we've got the advice to help you power up your ride. Get ready to crank up the volume on your knowledge and make your next wiring project a success.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something pretty important if you, the learner, are serious about your car audio. We're talking about safely wiring up a high-output alternator.
That's right. It's fundamental stuff.
We're drawing heavily from a really helpful article over at Baboom Baboom called How to Safely Wire High-Output Alternators for Powerful Audio Systems. Our aim. Break it down so you know how to power up without, well, problems.
Exactly, because if you want that big sound, you need the power to back it up. And your car's standard setup usually isn't going to cut it.
Okay, so let's start there. Why isn't the standard alternator enough? What's the actual problem?
Well, think about what your car came with. That factory alternator may be putting out, 80, 150 amps tops.
Right.
It's designed for the basics, lights, wipers, engine stuff, not for a massive audio system that could be pulling, say, 2,000 watts or even more.
7,000 watts, wow.
Yeah, it's a huge jump in demand. The stock unit just gets overwhelmed.
So what happens then? What are the signs that your alternator is crying for help?
You'll likely see things like your headlights dimming every time the bass hits. That's a big one.
Okay, I've seen that.
Or maybe your power windows seem slow, accessories aren't quite right, and the sound itself suffers weak bass, maybe distortion because the amps aren't getting steady power. They might start clipping.
Clipping sounds bad.
It is bad. It can actually damage your speakers and your amps over time. And, worst case, you could fry the alternator itself or other electrical bits in the car if you push it too hard for too long.
Definitely want to avoid that. So the solution is a high-output alternator. But the article makes a really strong point that just swapping the alternator isn't the full story.
Not even close. Yeah, the new alternator gives you the raw power potential, that stable source you need for everything, especially the big amps and subs. But you won't actually get that power efficiently or safely unless you upgrade the wiring, too. It's crucial.
Which brings us to this thing called the Big Three upgrade. Sounds important. What is that exactly?
It really is the foundation. The Big Three refers to upgrading three specific critical electrical pathways in your car's system.
Okay, which ones?
First, the connection from your battery's negative terminal straight to the car's chassis, the main ground.
Got it.
Second, the ground connection from the engine block itself, also to the chassis.
Right. Another ground path.
And third, the main power feed the wire running from the alternator's positive output post directly to the battery's positive terminal.
So upgrading these main arteries, essentially. Why these three?
Because these are the main highways for electrical current. The factory wires are often, adequate for factory loads, but not for high current. By swapping them out for much thicker cable, the article recommends 10 gauge, which is pretty beefy.
The 0 gauge, okay.
You drastically lower the electrical resistance. Less resistance means power flows more easily, more efficiently. The alternator doesn't have to work as hard to push the current through.
And that actually helps the audio.
Oh, definitely. Reducing voltage drop here, maybe getting back even half a volt or a volt that was being lost. That translates directly to more headroom for your amps, cleaner sound, better bass. You can often hear the difference.
What kind of wires should people look for? The article mentioned materials.
Yeah, good point. It suggests using oxygen-free copper, OFC, or really good quality copper-clad aluminum, CCA. The key is low resistance for maximum current flow.
Okay, Big Three, done. Sets the stage. Now, connecting the new alternator. The article really hammers on proper wire sizing and fusing. Why is this so critical?
Safety.
Okay.
Simple as that. A high-output alternator can pump out serious amperage. If your main power wire isn't thick enough for that current,
It could overheat.
exactly, can get dangerously hot, melt insulation, potentially cause a fire. It's no joke. And the fuse is your main safety net against short circuits or other electrical faults.
Right. So how do you figure out the right wire size and the right fuse?
Well, the rule of thumb mention is for alternators rated 200 amps or more, you really want to be using that 10 gauge wire, or maybe even bigger depending on the exact output and wire length.
Bigger wire for bigger power. Makes sense. And the fuse rating.
You want it rated just a bit above the alternator's maximum continuous output. So like the example given, if you have a 220 amp alternator, a 250 amp fuse is a pretty common choice. Gives you a safety margin without blowing unnecessarily.
Need top quality electrical wire? Baboom Baboom's got you covered. Get your 6-pack today. Each combo comes in 6 different colors and a total of 600 feet of wire. Perfect for any project, and you won't find a better price in the industry. Head over to baboombaboom.com now to snag yours. That's baboombaboom.com.
And where does this main fuse go? Location matters, right? Absolutely critical. It needs to be as close as physically possible to the power source, either right off the alternator's positive post or, more commonly, right near the battery's positive terminal.
How close are we talking?
Ideally within about 12 inches. The shorter the run of unfused heavy gauge wire, the better. If a short happens, you want that fuse to blow instantly before that big wire causes damage elsewhere. And use good quality fuse holders built for high current, definitely.
Okay, got it. Big 3, check. Proper wire and fuse, check. Let's walk through the actual swap. What are the basic steps for putting in the new alternator? Right, so first things first, always disconnect the battery. Negative terminal first. Safety.
Always negative first.
Yep. Then you'll remove the old alternator. Pay attention to how the belt is routed and where the wires connect. Maybe snap a quick photo with your phone if it helps.
Good tip. Then the new one goes in.
Yep. Mount the new high-output alternator securely. Make sure it's bolted down properly. Then you connect that main power wire, the big one, like 10 gauge from the alternator's positive post, through your new fuse holder with the correct fuse.
One near the battery.
Exactly. And then connect that to the battery's positive terminal. You'll also reconnect any smaller factory wires, like the regulator plug. And crucially, make sure you've already done or are doing the big 3 grounds battery to chassis, engine to chassis with that same heavy gauge wire.
So all connections made, grounds upgraded, ready to fire it up.
Almost. Just take a breath. Double check everything. Are all connections tight? Is the fuse properly seated? Is the belt tensioned correctly? Once you're sure, then reconnect the negative battery terminal.
Okay, moment of truth. Start the engine.
Start it up, and then grab a multimeter. You want to check the voltage right at the battery terminals while the engine's idling.
What should you see?
Typically, you're looking for somewhere between, say, 13.8 volts and maybe 14.8 volts. It can fluctuate a bit depending on the alternator and the load at that moment, but it should be significantly higher than battery voltage alone.
So if the voltage is in that range, you're good to go. Job done.
Well, the installation part is done mostly, but the article makes another good point. Maintenance is key. This isn't really a set it and forget it kind of upgrade.
Ah, right. What kind of ongoing checks are we talking about?
Keeping an eye on your voltage is smart. A simple dashboard voltmeter is great for this, gives you a constant reading.
See if it droops under load.
Exactly. And then maybe once a month or so, just do a quick visual inspection. Check those main power and ground wire connections. Look for any corrosion building up, any signs of wires fraying. Make sure everything's still tight.
Corrosion is the enemy of good connections.
It really is. Also, don't forget the battery itself. Is it healthy? Is it the right type of battery, like an AGM maybe, to handle the demands? Is it holding its charge properly? A weak battery can strain even a good alternator.
Good point about the battery type. Anything else?
Yeah, 2 quick things. If you add more amps or subs later, just reassess. Make sure your alternator can still handle the new total load, and keep those ground points clean, where the wires bolt to the chassis and engine. Make sure there's no rust or paint interfering with the clean metal-to-metal contact. Good grounds are just as important as good power wires.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So wrapping this up then, a high-output alternator is often essential for serious car audio. But just installing it isn't enough. You really need that big 3 wiring upgrade. You absolutely must use the right size wire and the correct fuse for safety.
Crucial.
Install it carefully, and then keep an eye on things with regular maintenance. Do all that, and you get reliable, safe power for awesome sound.
That's the goal. Build that solid electrical foundation.
This has been super insightful. Okay, here's something to chew on for you, the learner. Thinking bigger picture. With cars getting loaded with more and more electronics, even from the factory advanced safety systems, huge infotainment screens, never mind aftermarket audio, you have to wonder, right?
Under what?
Will car manufacturers start building vehicles with more robust electrical systems as standard? Maybe heavier gauge wiring, more powerful stock alternators baked into the design, so these kinds of upgrades become less necessary.
That's an interesting thought. Integrating it from the start rather than always playing catch-up with aftermarket solutions.
Yeah.
Something to consider for the future.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Need top quality electrical wire? Baboom Baboom's got you covered. Get your 6-pack today. Each combo comes in 6 different colors and a total of 600 feet of wire. Perfect for any project, and you won't find a better price in the industry. Head over to baboombaboom.com now to snag yours. That's baboombaboom.com.